Good morning, afternoon, or evening. How are you going? I was just waiting for Spark to jump up here and get up on stage as well. But how is everybody this fine day?
I'm doing great. Hopefully, you're having a great day as well.
Yeah, excellent for me. It's currently midnight where I am, so
So maybe
letting
not day,
the
or I guess morning.
yeah yeah. I suppose it's the very early morning for me.
This is the way.
All right, just while we wait for Spark to jump up, I'd just like to welcome everybody here. Obviously, we have a massive lineup of guests for this afternoon or evening, night, morning, wherever you are, depending. And I think the entire AMA series is going to be fantastic. I don't know if we're having a couple of technical difficulties while we wait for Spark. It's I don't know if it's not letting him come up. I can see that you've requested. I just can't. I'll see if I can adjust this a different way and try this. Well, that looks like it might be working. I can. There we go. Oh, I thought we were going to have technological issues. It was going to be a disaster.
No, I was trying to go through the through a few different devices and it wasn't letting me. But I'm here. I've arrived. Awesome, great. I'm really looking forward to this this Spaces. We've got some amazing guests that are going to join us. Welcome to everybody who's joining us now and who will join us as people come on in the next minute or so. Just to kind of give everybody a bit of an overview, my name is Machu Rudolph. I am the Chief Operating Officer at Layer 1X. I'm joined by our Community Manager, Joe, as well, who's helping me host this space and looking after everybody. This particular space series is called XTalks. And there's a reason why it's called XTalks and why the focus is on interoperability, because built directly into Layer 1X, which is a Layer 1 blockchain, is a technology called XTalk. What it does, it allows us, or Layer 1X, to connect to any chain, EVM, non-EVM. And so what happens when we connect to a chain, it allows that particular chain and the applications on that chain to have bridgeless interoperability between any other chain we're connected to, or Layer 1X is connected to. So just to give you an example, we're currently connected to Ethereum, Solana, Binance Smart Chain, Optimism, Arbitrum, Phantom, Polygon, and AVAX. And we're, which I think the timing's pretty good, is that we're currently integrating the Bitcoin network as well to have bridgeless interoperability with every chain within that that I've just mentioned. And we will continue to add chains as we go. I'd also like to give a shout out to X-Co-Host, the team from X-Co-Host, who's helping us host today. Shout out to those guys. I know that they're going to put a link in the comments there to the actual spaces itself. So if we can get as many people as possible interacting with that link and retweeting that out, and then we can grow the spaces more and more as we continue the conversation as well. Joe, anything else you want to say before we actually kick off and straight into it?
No, I think you've encompassed that excellently. Fantastic intro. We do have a Gleam where we can get a follow on for all of the speakers that we will have up as well, and I'll throw that down in the comments. But just give me a moment because I don't want to rug our Twitter, as sometimes does happen. So I'll try and play the computer game from my end, but I'll get that up, and that way everybody's links and what's the word? Social shares will be able on there. So I'll get that up at some stage during the spaces. But in the meantime, over to you, sir. You're
no, thank you. Yeah, look, it might be a bit overwhelming for you to do that because we've got so many guests today that are going to join us. But look, the topic today that we're talking about, it's always about interoperability and the impact that it's going to have in particular sectors within blockchain. And today specifically, we're going to be talking about Web3 gaming, interoperability and Web3 gaming. So really, it's a roundtable discussion. I want to encourage those speakers that are welcome here today and that are guests here today to join the discussion. I'm going to throw out some discussion topics, some open-ended questions, and really love to hear the insights that we have from our guests around those topics and those questions as well. So how about we kick off? Now, obviously, I've introduced myself and I've introduced Layer 1X. What I will do as we go through these topics and questions, for anyone who's any of the guest speakers that are responding to those, when you do respond, just give your name and your project name as when you're responding to it, just so we can recognize you and also the project or the name of the project that you're representing as well. That would be excellent. So look, I think let's start, and we've got a few different topics and discussions that we can talk about today, but let's start off with one of the underlying assumptions of the value of interoperability. One of those underlying assumptions is that there will be games, Web3 games, built on multiple chains. So meaning that a game might be on one chain and then another game might be on another chain. Hence, the value of interoperability has got to be there. So the first question, is that a realistic future for blockchain? Will we have multiple chains that exist, and will games, different games be built on different chains, so they need some sort of connection?
Do we just jump in with our name and project, or should we put the
100%? Please jump in with your name and project.
Jump in?
So, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Please do. Yep.
Yeah. Well, Blake from Gaming. Look, I think that for sure, like, there's always just going to be all these chains that different projects decide to pop their games on. And I definitely think that that's just going to continue. I don't necessarily think that it'll generally jump to one solution unless there is some like crazy solution that exists in the future. But we're already seeing so many different, I think, like great features that come from different chains. Like, I for sure think that there has to be definitely the importance of that interoperability though, because I think I look at it from a user perspective, and if we're like when we look at mass adoption and pushing towards the masses, which is just everyday gamers, not just Web3 gamers, right? Like if we look at the overall gaming landscape, like even just PC gamers, for instance, like 1.6 billion PC gamers exist. How do we get out to them? We need that level of interoperability, like whether it's through what sounds like an option like what you guys are doing, or whether it's an option of like what we're doing. We've got a gaming platform when we're multi-chain or whatever it is. I just believe that there needs to be that level of ease that comes in through that comes in for gamers, right? Like gamers in general, like typically speaking, they're there to just have fun. They don't want to learn about what blockchain something exists on. They probably just want to jump in more times than not, just to enjoy that gaming experience in the limited time that they have, maybe to just play games, right? So I don't necessarily think we should be trying to like push tech onto people. I feel like it should be built more seamlessly in the background. I actually know that I've had a couple of conversations with Gaspo about this. Gaspo, this is Blake from Chatter. Gaming is now one of my clients, but I hope you've been well, mate. We used to jump in with Anna, and we used to have these gaming spaces all the time, but we've talked about this multiple times. But mate, like, would love to hear what you think about this as well.
I was going to double up on what you said, essentially, that I think it's a good idea for games to try and be...
Gaspo, your mic, brother, it's a little bit, I don't know, it's like distant.
How about now?
Yeah, now it's much better.
Yeah, I've now got it in my mouth, so that's inconvenient, but we'll see what's going on. Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm going to double up really on what you were saying, to be honest, that I think it benefits projects to be on as many chains as possible. I think it's probably not going to happen now, but in the future, I think it would be a benefit for gamers that they don't want to care what chain they're on. We've got chain maxis right now, but I think that will vanish eventually, and people will be more game maxis, and they won't care about your chain. I don't want to see it particularly. I don't want to know what chain you're on. I don't have to keep bridging across to have different currencies. From an ease perspective for a gamer, allowing them to pay in whatever currencies they have, I think would be the best way to make it clean for them. I know we're seeing some games already that accept multiple currencies for the same asset. I'm unsure whether they have assets across the chains or whether they do the conversion and then you still get the asset on the same chain. And then we are also seeing games that are mixing between fiat and crypto for these purchases, which again I think is quite a good move to allow people to come on as easy as possible. I do know that brings in some regulatory issues, but from a game's point of view, having that ease of I've got this money and let me spend my money with you. Games should make it as easy as possible for me to spend.
Yeah, look, I totally agree, and I think the mic slowly removed itself a little bit more from your mouth. So definitely keep it in your mouth because it was perfectly clear then. It started to fade a little bit at the end, but I totally agree with you guys, and I think it's a common theme that we've heard all along is that the users really don't need to know that they're on blockchain or that the technology that they're using. It needs to be a seamless experience, and it's really interesting. I think you're talking about the multi-chain experience there were games existing on multiple chains, and I think there's a and the need to be able to use multiple currencies on a particular game, whether it's from the native chain or from cross-chain, and I think that's really important as well. And what's interesting about some of the interoperability technology, including ours, is that you don't have to be multi-chain where you can access assets, NFTs, smart contracts can talk to each other cross-chain, so you don't really have to have that multi-chain experience. You can be on one chain but access cross-chain. But I'm interested to hear maybe if we can explore a little bit more around let's say if we dive a little bit more into this idea about games being on different chains, how does cross-chain collaboration work? How could that look? I mean, how is Web3 gaming collaboration working now? And is that what we can expect for cross-chain collaboration as well? This one I'm interested because, I think about cross-chain collaboration, but I'm wondering, how do games work together currently? Are they minting NFTs together? What's happening in the space at the moment in terms of Web3 gaming collaboration?
Blake from
Just
Gaming
before
again.
we pass over.
Oh, sorry, go.
Sorry, 1 sec. Just as a service announcement from hosting point of view, we're just getting a lot of requests to speak, and we will rotate through speakers as well. So just be patient. Everybody's going to get a chance to come up. But sorry, continue. Thank you.
I was just going to say, I think right now it depends on how you look at it, Spark. So, like for instance, the way that I've seen games collaborating with one another, probably for the past 2.5 years in blockchain, is more specifically around that sort of like PFP collection collaboration. So given that that's generally like the premise of like where most of these games actually start to build that group of evangelists around their brand to actually push the name and the brand awareness of their brand out to people, that's typically where we see like a lot of these collaborations happening. I don't know if everyone else agrees, but for instance, like for us, we've been able to actually like collaborate with people across ETH, people in Solana, more specifically, because as we've sort of come out of that bear market, like they're the two chains that typically had the most communities on them based on PFPs being such a prominent community building factor. Like kind of coming into this market now, we're starting to see like even BTC kind of coming out with those NFT communities as well. Interested to see all the token communities come back in full swing, but like I think that's typically what's been happening right now is like that I've seen, at least from my perspective, and I think that's pretty cool.
If you don't mind, I would love to jump on. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll jump after you.
All right, sounds good. I would love to jump on the conversation. First of all, I'm Pasquale, co-founder and CMO at Bloodloop, an upcoming hero shooter game building on Avalanche and leveraging blockchain to create tools for the end user to experience a different gaming paradigm. Let's say that. So generally speaking, I don't necessarily agree with the idea that being on multiple chains for a game is the way to make it, as the fact that building a game on chain means that you're building a game onto a technological layer that helps your product to get to the points where your tools and the feature that you want to have in your product has to be implemented. So the goal of building on multiple chains for the user acquisition standpoint doesn't really resonate with us, as you don't really onboard user from Web3 at this point if you want your game to be a success. But at the same level, I also believe that the cross-chain communication is something that we truly need. So as of now, there's a lot of possibilities for games to build and start building together, particularly when you want to target the niche audience of the Web3. So you want to stay in the Web3 gaming side of things. And as Gaming was saying, the opportunities of doing collaborative PFPs or collaborative in-game experiences revolving around blockchain is definitely something interesting when you want to target the smaller niche, which is of course great when it comes down to business, because even if it's a smaller niche, it's definitely a niche which is more deep pocketed than a traditional gamer that you would onboard from the Web 2. So of course it's important to keep on targeting that audience. And definitely cross-chain communication is interesting to explore, but the way I see it is that it's more important for infrastructures and kind of tool providers that a lot of games are leveraging, rather than for the game itself to think about the cross-chain features. So it's better if, as a product, I can interact with a third party that can help the product out into building out possible collabs, possible cross-chain features, rather than the game themselves start thinking about building cross-chain or whatever. That's our approach, at least.
No, I totally agree with you. I think as a layer one ourselves, our focus is purely the infrastructure. So if we can provide an infrastructure for at the application level for Web3 games to focus on the application, but we can build in an infrastructure where it can help that application leverage cross-chain communication, then I think that's the perfect kind of fit. We'll stick to the infrastructure, you stick to the Web3 applications, but the infrastructure can enable, maybe more access. And I really like your point, Pasquale, on multi-chain versus cross-chain, because I think sometimes we're on multiple chains because of the incompatibility between chains. Now, if we can take away that incompatibility and have compatibility and cross-chain interaction between chains, then there's really no need for multi-chain. Potentially, that's just my opinion. We could look at a future where that multi-chain doesn't need to exist, where you can consolidate liquidity, where you could be on one chain but still access users and capital cross-chain. Now, I noticed before you jumped in and spoke, Pascal, or as you jumped in, someone else had something to say as well. But I appreciate those comments. Who was the other person that was going to get up and comment as well? Please go ahead.
Hey guys.
Hey, thanks. This is Ray. This is Ray from Zeta. I was trying to comment. I think I liked what Blake was saying about the multi-chain, and I also understand from the gaming point of view why multi-chain is not the right one. So to give a little bit background, so we started with building a game called Born to Die, which is currently a mobile hardcore game, a shooter game. And while building the game, we realized that the way we want our users to interact with the game was not something possible without really building a lot of tech or infra to support it. Right now, we have got a lot of new tech which has come up. I'm talking about something 2 years back. So we ended up building ourselves own, and that's how we learned in the process. But I like this point, right? So there are 2 points I would like to make. If I go back to the older Web2 games or mobile games, video games today, any form of cross-chain or cross-game communication used to happen only through APIs. That means there is an intermediate party which is essentially kind of becoming that middleman to essentially give and take the communication or validate the transactions, right? But I think with Web3, that is getting lifted off. And it doesn't matter which chain a game is on, as long as I'm able to read the assets or execute on those contracts, be it the tokens, be it the NFTs, be it the SFTs, we as games would be able to consume it. Now, yes, I agree with Pipsqueeze when he said so much of tech should not be built by the game. Games should be focusing on building a lovable, playable game which users will love. And all this underlying infra or underlying tech, I would not say infra, but underlying tech, which should be available as a solution in form of APIs, in form of things which they can consume easily. But that essentially means that no matter which chain we are on, we should be able to Avalanche. I can essentially run a campaign, a community campaign for Solana users, give them NFTs, let's say free mint NFTs. They come over here. They can use those Solana NFTs in my Avalanche game, and they can get multipliers, let's say, on the scores. That is possible, right? And vice versa. These are all possible. If you want to collaborate with other games, you can do the same thing. Hey, if you have the game assets, you can come to my game and play the game, and you will get multipliers because you're owning these game assets. These all are becoming more and more possible by middle layer technologies that are getting built. Zeta is one of them. We are building, actually focusing on the solutions layer on the top of infrastructure for Web3, rather than trying to build all the infra on the Web3 directly. But our intent is to essentially solve all these middle layer problems as we talk about.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting because, and you bring up a couple of good points, because, you know, with the technology, the interoperability technology, you might be able to have your NFT, your gaming NFT on Binance Smart Chain, and the smart contract, communication cross chain will allow you to then use that particular, whatever it's a tool or a weapon, on maybe a game in Polygon. So now you are, you're beyond that siloed nature of the chain. But let's say what I'm interested in maybe also hearing as well is that, so what's the current landscape? If you're a Web3 gamer, what are the decisions that you're making now in terms of which chain you choose to build on? What are some of the decisions you need to make? What are things that you're looking for in a particular chain that are important for you to build that Web3 game on? Whether that's, outside of interoperability, whatever that is, what is the core components of a chain that you look for currently? I'm interested in the Web3. Yeah.
Don't build your transactions that happen a lot on Ethereum, because you're going to bleed everyone with gas fees. So from my point of view, playing the games, gas fees is the biggest consideration. The second consideration for me is, do I already have funds there? So am I going to have to go through a lot of effort bridging? I've opened up a bit now about which chains I'll play on, because I've got funds kind of across multiple chains, but there's still chains that I've barely anything on, like Cardano. I've got 1-2 assets on, and I don't have anything there. So if you're building on that chain, you're going to have to really sell your game to me to bother my ass to go and put anything on that chain. And I think that's a problem that we see for some games, is that they pick a obscure chain. They might have a good reason for picking that obscure chain, but you're now having to market your game and market the chain, which kind of doubles up your costs of marketing. And I think for a lot of these games that are already on tight budget, and marketing's normally the first thing that gets the budget cut on, I don't think it's a good idea to also be having to try and sell someone on a chain. So I think you're best going where the games already are.
Yeah, and I think you raise a really good point, because I think that decision you're having to make, and you mentioned you have to market the chain, you have to market the game. And I think that's also a symptom of the lack of current interoperability between chains as well, because the siloed nature of a chain means that users have to try and get assets onto that chain to use them on the chain. So you've got to market the chain to get the users and get the assets over, and then you've got to also market your game. Whereas if you had that particular game on, say, a Cardano, but you could use smart contract verification where an NFT holder on Solana could still use it in the game, then that may go some way to you be able to just market the game no matter what chain that user is on, even though your game is on Cardano. Obviously, then you come up with wallet restrictions. What wallet are you going to actually be able to use? Because the wallet itself has to be interoperable across chain as well. So there's all these different things that come into play. But what are some of the other, and I think you raised some really good points, and it's one we hear a lot in terms of the cost of transaction. Extremely important where the games already are, because where the games are, you've got gamers. What are some of the other factors, maybe from some of the other guests as well, that impact your decision when you're choosing to build on a particular chain?
Hey everyone, it's Arjun. Do you hear me good?
Yep, we can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
I'm first time joining the space through my laptop, so that's why I'm asking. So I collected all the questions you already asked, and now I will try to to answer them very short. I will start with the multi-chain for games and why it's important, from my opinion. So I'm a user of Mac OS computer. So usually most of the games that that studios are building are not accessible for my computer, and I don't play them. But maybe if these games were accessible for Mac OS as well, I was one of the players. So, and I think it's a very big problem for Web3 gaming that studios and projects are trying to make a big target on one chain, and they, in this case, they don't get all the gamers they can. From my opinion, I think the blockchain should be a technical layer for the game, and it should be optional. So what gives blockchain to the players? It gives them that the game's going fair. It gives them an opportunity to own all their assets. And what else? I'm not sure, because at the end of the day, we're talking about that to make the games better with Web3, not to make them more complete. And in this case, I think the user experience should be as smooth as possible. And if I'm not a Web3 person, or I have a BNB wallet, I'm not sure, or I don't know, Solana wallet, it shouldn't be the factor that I couldn't join the game if I don't have another chain wallet. So from my opinion, how could it be collaborative for multi-chain? And how do we release it in our game, in Petabots? Firstly, we were launched on Polygon chain. Our alpha version was launched on Polygon chain, and I will answer the second question: how we choose the blockchain. We choose it by the amount of target users on the chain and the support the chain can provide in marketing and so on. So that was one of our main decision-making points that made us to build on Polygon firstly. And the second one was ecosystemmal support we can get as well, because, for example, at that point, it was the launch of Magic Eden on Polygon chain, and we decided to start cooperation with them and do the NFT launch there. And I think it was a cool opportunity as well. But for now, what we're doing with the beta release, we're preparing the game to be wholly multi-chain. So, and it's not too, for our game, it's not too hard to do, because what we do in blockchains that we give the opportunity to own assets. And if you own assets on Polygon or on Layer 1, on Avalanche, Solana, and other things, what we need to do is to add the techniques that players can log in with the wallet, and the NFTs will be shown there as an assets, and they can play against each other. And in our technical way, it's not too hard to do. And from my point, I recommend to do it. But even to give the opportunity for Web2 users, for just gamers, to join the game with Google account, to join the game with email, with a simple login, to buy the assets with fiat, and if they want, to own it. If they don't want to do it, if they don't see any value for them, they can just play the game. And I think it's very honest for the players, because they can choose if they want to go deeper with Web3 or they don't need it. Because there are a lot of 13, 15, 16 years old, and even so, what is like the segment of Web3? It's people from around 19 to 40 who can use Web3. But people who are under 18 and who are older than 40, they usually don't know how to use like Web3. I take the major of the people. And we should give, as game studios, we should give the opportunity for them to even don't go deep in it.
Yeah.
Because they just want to spend their time. And they should
and don't even and it shouldn't interrupt your experience, right? And this learning curve that you have to learn, because now we are interacting with Web3 about wallets and all. And what I'm interested in for some of the speakers to ask is that it kind of, and I've heard a couple of speakers talk about the simplification of this user experience, the seamless nature of, okay, I'm playing a game, I don't care whether it's Web3 or Web2, but hey, now I'm getting these extra things that I can actually own my asset, and I can move that asset, I can sell that asset. That's cool. But this seems like logical stuff. This seems to me like, how long is this conversation going on? And I suppose my question is, why have we not created solutions yet? Why are we still talking about what we should be doing, and we haven't yet done these things? What's
we have?
Yeah. I would like to stop in too.
Please, and share if we're doing it. Please share.
No, go on.
Right, yeah.
I'll jump in after you. Yeah, go on.
Cheers, man. Look, I was just gonna say, like, I feel like I didn't want to make it as shilly, but like for all the games here, this is something that I love sharing, and it's very like, it's more of like us being a big bro of sorts. Like we actually topped the charts on DApp Radar for a number of categories, which obviously, as we know, is like highest on-chain activity in specific different ranks. And 99%, so we've actually got 300,000 downloads of the gaming platform, and 99% of all our downloads are all Web2 natives that have no idea we run on Web3 tech.
Excellent.
So what I was going to say was like these are solutions that have already been built. We do know of a number of other people that have done it. It sounds like CyberLeak was about to say the same thing, but like I feel like that there's definitely solutions that exist. And like us, for instance, we are we're pretty much like what we think of what we're doing is pretty much we are the epitome of mass adoption happening right now, right? Because that's what everyone in this space has been talking about for the last couple of years, right? All through that last sort of like bull, all through the last bear that we've just been through. Like everyone's talking about, oh, we need to make gaming options, we need to make blockchain more seamless. We need to create that user experience. They shouldn't have to realize that they're actually, they're using this specific tech. And I love giving this example because this example, like, I think speaks volumes for how every developer needs to be thinking, right? So gamers don't care about the tech, full stop, right? Like some of them might, but most of them don't. Just like the everyday shopper, when they go to Amazon and they want to buy toothbrush and toothpaste, gonna keep this real simple, right? That Amazon doesn't, the user just wants to get in there, buy their toothpaste and toothbrush. They want to pay with their credit card and they want to leave. They don't care about how many transactions per second the credit card does. They don't care about what chain what CMS Amazon is like sitting on. They don't care about the courier company that they've used to deliver them the product. They just want the baby without the labor pains, if you understand that analogy, right? And that's, I feel like, what we need to be doing in this space, right? And we've already started doing that. And we're proud to say that we have. And I feel like every developer just has to start doing it. Like you just said, Spark, like enough with we should be doing this, or we're going to, like, just get it done, release it, get on that chain, right? Like one of those questions before was like, what chain selection, what's your chain selection as a builder, right? Like my advice to builders would be that, like, provided that you get all the fundamentals out of the way, which is what Gaspard talked about before, like, gas fees, in terms of like all the other features that you can build into your game, provided that you have those fundamentals, choose a chain that has evangelists waiting there to play your game. Choose a chain that is as like frictionless as possible in terms of being able to grow that community, that initial community that gets you your evangelists, that you can then go out to market with and then just push out, because majority of the builders in this space, they don't have that budget, right? So that's honestly my opinion. Just start doing it. Look at solutions that already exist. There are logins with emails that effectively create wallets in games, so that Web2 or everyday gamers don't need to do it. Like, I feel like that's what we need to be looking at.
And can I just,
anyway, CyberLeak.
Can we expand on that? Because I think what everyone's interested to hear is that you mentioned, and I'm interested to hear from yourself and anyone else, is what are the specific use cases? Give us the examples of When you say we're creating a seamless experience, what are you doing? Well, so the login, that's a specific example. What are you guys doing? What is everyone doing to make that experience seamless?
I think it's even in like the language that you use, right? Like it's so the tech already exists, right? Like we know for example, I can't recall the name of it right now, and there's multiple options that you can literally log in to an account with your Google account, and then on the back end there's a wallet that's automatically created. Like I think on our platform we're using Venly, but there's a number of different options out there, right? Like that's one option. The second thing would be to like it's just the language that you use. So for instance, on our platform, we don't use any of the buzzwords that freak everyone out, right? Like, because we know through news, through talking to family and friends, whenever you mention the word NFT or you mention Web3 or blockchain, there's a stigma to a lot of those things because of all the bad actors in the space, right? So we like the best way to be able to like sell what you're so passionate about, which is this blockchain space, to people, is to just describe the asset by the function that it serves, not what it is, right? So what I mean by that, it's like, oh, you can buy this digital gaming asset and use it as a weapon in this game, as opposed to saying, hey, buy this NFT and then try to explain whatever else it is then. Like just changing the language. Like so for us, for instance, we don't use NFT on the platform. We don't use that word. We use DGA, digital gaming asset. And just the twist of that word all of a sudden allows us to expose ourselves to hundreds of thousands of everyday gamers that all of a sudden don't now then just not exposed to it. They're using the same exact asset that you would have built or that we have built already. It's just a different language. And I feel like that's the language we use is as important as the current use cases that exist.
I think
guys, please expand on those use cases.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point and I think whether it's gaming, whether it's DeFi, whether it's whatever, I think if we all hark back to our first experience in crypto, blockchain, there was a language that we had to learn to understand what the hell everyone was talking about, right? So I think you really, and this is probably showing my age. No one really cares what a flux capacitor does, right? Back to the Future. It basically helps you go back in time, right? So that's I think you bring up a really good point about the language that we're using, making it familiar, making it understandable, talking about what it does, not what it is. Anyone else want to jump in there as well with maybe some examples of what they're doing within Web3 to bridge that gap, right? To make it a little bit more familiar, a bit more easy for potential Web2 gamers to come and use this new technology.
Yo, what's up? JRP here, an advisor for a variety of different games. Also starting up RevGG, which is an influencer kind of campaign management tool, and as well as running my own community Web3 gaming group. We have a first virtual event today if anyone wants to join. I think when it comes down to, I guess, trying to onboard people, in my opinion, I don't think that we need to make it harder than it needs to be. And I say that to say that getting onboarded into WoW or League of Legends is a big lift. And the way that most people do it is having a friend in that ecosystem already. I think, Ronan specifically has proved that you can onboard individuals without really kind of making it, I guess, totally abstracted away. The DGA makes a lot of sense. I think we're going to see a lot of that experimentation kind of coming up, soon, and obviously starting now. But I don't think that it's necessary to kind of really push to this mass adoption that we're all thinking about. I think that it's here. We've seen it with NFL Rivals already, with the 3 million downloads on the iOS store, and kind of getting, I think, 15% of their revenue via the secondary market. It can happen already. I think at this point it's really, what are the experiences that we're going to be providing gamers? Is it better than the current experiences that they have? And people are excited for it. I obviously think that there's some things that we need to chat about, like the bridging and kind of everything more on the back end. But when it comes to just having like a really simple, easy system, if you haven't used a Ronin wallet, it's really easy to use. And, I think anybody can use it. Again, they proved that, right? So again, I don't think it needs to be super overthought or kind of complicated, and I think it's here already. I think we just need to kind of produce those experiences, and everyone's taking its own approach to that, right?
I'm interested maybe to continue that conversation with, what scenario does maybe like an EA Sports or a Ubisoft start really building in Web3? Is that ever going to happen? And if it did happen, what kind of scenario would that look like? What needs to happen?
I reckon they acquire. Wouldn't they acquire someone? Like,
Okay.
I don't know. JRP, you go for it, brother. I've been talking too much.
Yeah, got you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's here already. I mean, they're looking into it already. I think that there's a whole bunch of major IP, specifically in Asia, that is already building in the space. I don't think that the question is rather when are they going to launch their games? Like, this is something that I don't see anybody talking about. On Thursday, Nightcrow is going to have their pre-registration open. Nightcrow was making $2.1 million every single day the first 2 weeks that it launched in the App Store. This is going to be launched on Wemix. It's launching again pre-registration on Thursday, and it's going to go global Q1. It's going to be huge already. Like, Wemix for one has 300,000 daily active users. It's I want to read it on their website. Their other game that is actually really popular is Mirror 4, I believe. So again, I think it's here. I think we're going to see the same thing that happened when we turned to free to play, which was pay to play, or at least the console wars, right? Was, hey, mobile's not really going to do anything. We're not going to really care about it. And then some of them jumped in, but now we see people like Zynga obviously taking over the market, and now mobile gaming makes up for, what is it, like 60% of the total gaming revenue in the space, right? So I think we're going to see a very similar shift, in my opinion. I think now brands and games and IP and studios are much more efficient and effective when it comes to kind of essentially keeping their market share and being competitive and kind of trying new things. We obviously see that with Zynga, right? With Army of Tactics. I mean, that's Zynga. What else do you want to know there, right? I think again, people are just experimenting with what is the best thing that's going to work, and no one really knows that. And I give huge props to the Ronin team, because to bring Pixel's daily active users from 10K to 150 is no joke. Like, that is, you have community and you want users, there you go. Perfect. It's good to go. I think we need more of that. I see other things like Treasure DAO doing a really great job. Like Beam is doing a great job as well. Scale is starting to do that. I think we need more ecosystem plays, essentially. But again, it's coming. It's here. I think we're just waiting on those games.
And so then maybe I'll put this question out to the guests as well, is that, let's say these big players start to come into the Web3 space. What happens to the existing Web3 gaming developers? What happens to the smaller studios, or what happens to the teams that are building these games? What happens when the big boys come in?
To quickly add on, I think that Web3 gives people the opportunity, gamers specifically, the opportunity to give power back to the studio. If they don't like a game, they sell their asset, and now the game goes to shit. But if they love a game, whether it's indie or not, they're going to invest both their time and money. I mean, today you see things with like, FIFA, MLB, they release the same shit every single year. Like, gamers don't like that. I mean, gamers right now are so bored. They want new experiences. And I think even if these big major studios come in, I personally think that they're going to have to invest into these smaller studios. They're going to have to either buy them up, or the smaller studios figure it out on themselves and create a community that's really, really tight knit, and it's going to take them, ultimately to be sustainable. I know already of game developers who literally created their game like 6 months ago, and now are living, like, their whole entire paycheck is coming from just doing live ops now. And that's an indie game dev. Like, there's a lot of opportunities. It doesn't have to be, hey, who's going to be number one and win millions? That probably will always be a big company, but there's going to be so much more, I think, diversity that we don't see today in the market. If you're a small game studio wanting to launch on console or mobile, you can't. It's kind of impossible. But that changes with Web3.
Yeah, interesting.
I'm less optimistic. Well, no, not optimistic, probably the wrong word. I think it will just be the same as in traditional gaming. I think the big boys will come in, they'll eat plenty of people's lunch, plenty of people get pushed out. There will be more opportunity for indie studios to survive because it provides additional streams of revenue, but I don't think Web3 changes the dynamic a huge amount, really.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting to have those opposing views, because what then maybe the question is, if it does change the landscape, what is it about Web3 that makes it a different scenario to Web2, where you have these major players dominating the market? Why does Web3 provide a more, I suppose, decentralized opportunity for gaming studios to survive? I mean, what is the difference? If that is the case, if that's people's belief, why is Web3 so a different environment for that to take place?
I reckon it's psychological. So the whole point of decentralization is like, I think in terms of like when a project launches in Web3, and this is coming from a few years of being on the ground, seeing it, is there is a genuine thirst for people who invest to be as close as possible to the person who's founded or who's created the project. And I think what it is, it brings about that accessibility. And like one of our core basic principles as a human is significance. We like to feel a piece of significance, and every person has a level or a way that they receive that, right? If it's like intrinsic, extrinsic, from family, friends, whatever it is. And so I think what Web3 does is it gives people a way to just get that access that they wouldn't usually get, right? And I think that's why the communities are so strong, because then all of a sudden, and I keep saying this word because of how important this is, and like I know this is important because it works every time, it's evangelism, right? Like every time a project comes into Web3, that they have to realize it's like the community that is the focus, right? And that's why a lot of projects don't necessarily do so well, is because they lack that focus on community. And so why I think it's super important for gaming projects to just come in and like why there's going to be a sort of like a continued existence for opportunity in terms of indie projects is because that exists. And people can't get that with the big gaming I guess like your Activisions or your Zingers, like people. It's kind of weird. Actually, for any of the speakers right now, I'd love to. I'm genuinely curious. Like, do you guys share the same observation in that most people sort of like in the space despise big Web2 companies coming into the space? Like, they generally don't do too well. Like, have you guys seen that? Like, I've actually witnessed that on a number of accounts where big Web2 businesses don't actually get the right traction because of the reasons that I've just talked about. Has anyone else seen that before? Crickets. All right.
Well, what I might build on what you mentioned there is, would it be a fair statement to say that while potentially maybe Web3 gaming currently aren't building better games than Web2, but they are building better communities than Web2?
Yeah, I think that's what it is, Spark. Like, I feel like that's what exactly what I'm trying to say. Like, it's that that whole idea of significance, that people can actually be proud of something. They wear it as a badge of honor. They go ahead and they become that evangelist. They tell their friends and family. They go ahead and they tweet about it. They jump on spaces. They support. They react to announcements. They do all the things that is basically just really strong community building. Like, in comparison of an analogy, you could think about it as like what creator economies are in big Web2 games. That's kind of like what indie gamers are doing based, like, I guess, on ground level when it comes to Web3. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's, I guess, why was it JRP what you said, like why there's still opportunity for people to like actually make a living out of just creating a game. I think that's the opportunity there.
And maybe then let me ask this then of maybe any of the other guests, is the ability to build a better community based on the fact because there's financial incentive? Is Web3 building a better community? Because why are they doing it? Is that because there's financial incentive to be evangelist? Where does that come into play in terms of community building?
I think so. I'd like to step in here.
Oh, go on.
Thank you. Jeffrey Monis, co-founder of Cyberleap. There's a lot of things I want to chime in on. First is the multi-chain. But I want to first direct this question that you did. People are like the experience right now for people to come in and do cross-chain stuff is really tough. So as we're all, as developers, building on Ethereum, building on Solana, building on here, it confuses the experience of the gamer. That is why the gamers don't like it. It's because now they have like 17 different other locations that they got to keep track of. When right now they're just keeping track of Steam or Battle.net. They don't have to do much else. So we have to keep that experience kind of in line with what they're used to. It's kind of like don't fix what's broken, or don't fix what's not broken type of thing. And with the multi-chain part, there are enhancements in these areas. For instance, Cyberleap builds with Constellation Network, and they're a JVM, a Java Virtual Machine comparable. And that allows us to plug into legacy machines and legacy networks and able to do multiple crazy different things that are different than other chains. There's a lot of education there. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about that, but toot Constellation Network. So there's some experience that we have to like come in. So what are we doing, or what should we be doing different? I really like what Gaming had said about account abstraction, meaning making an email their account, their smart account with a wallet attached. That is very much what's needed. I think there's Immutable X and some other reputable things out there you can plug in. There's 4337 for Ethereum for account abstraction, the EIP that's being created. There's some development out there. So there is crazy things coming out. We as developers have to utilize these things and be aware of them. And if we can create this experience where people are coming in and utilizing it in a multi-chain environment, this interoperability conversation, it like for instance with Constellation Network, we get a state channel, a metagraph that is like it's a full blockchain layer one. So we get our own blockchain layer one that has our own anything we want with it. We get to create it in a Java environment. So now this opens a whole different dynamic to what we build as a business on our layer one blockchain that goes into their DAG blockchain as an index. What we're doing different is we're indexing data. As people are utilizing our platform, we're rewarding users, whether they're casually playing a game or professionally playing the game, and giving these tools to the game developers and the tournament organizers as like an infrastructure, so we can help them build the communities and secure the communities to stop this fragmentation, meaning segmentation of all the games, including the segmentation of all the blockchains. When the tech is literally whatever the game developer chooses, we have to build tools that connect everything, and instead of like bridging everything for the user, we bridge everything type of thing.
No, and I think you build a really good point, because what does a world where everything is connected, like where every chain is connected, you've got Web 2, Web 3 connection. So we have almost like this interchain experience where, yes, there might be multiple blockchains existing, but it's like one environment. I mean, is that the utopia? Is that where, if that's achieved, then it's game over?
I wouldn't say game over. I would just say the experience will be a lot more fluent, and the flow would be more fluent. And the users that want to trade or own their token because they understand what's going on, that they can own a piece of what's going on, then they're going to do that. Why? 90% of people are just going to play the game. So it depends on who you're getting in as a customer, but most people just want to go home, play their game in a cheat-free environment, not get hacked, essentially, like if you're playing Counter-Strike, and then at the same time just get rewarded and have a good time.
Yeah, and I think and maybe let's explore that a little bit, maybe for maybe some of the listeners that maybe aren't too aware of what are the advantages for gamers that Web3 brings in terms of the experience, right? But let's take it back to basics. And so maybe if we can hear from some of the guests on what are the advantages in terms of the gaming experience that Web3 brings that Web2 doesn't currently deliver. If maybe some guests can maybe speak on that a little bit.
Happy to jump in. So I think a key one is ownership, right? Something that is probably the obvious one. Something that, if we're bringing it back to basics in terms of explanation, what Web3 brings that Web2 doesn't is that you can go ahead and buy, let's use the example of a Fortnite skin. In a Web2 sense, you pay for V-Bucks, you then go ahead and you buy a skin, and then you basically, that's it. You have the skin in the game. If you log out of the game, you can't really do anything else with it. It only exists in the game if your Xbox or your PlayStation breaks or whatever. That's it. It's basically just money that you once spent that exists in that game alone, right? On the Web3 aspect, what you have is ownership. So you actually can buy that skin, say, for example, just in another game. You then have the ownership over that. And through a transposable or like interoperability, you would then be able to use that same skin in other games, right? So, for example, on Gaming, there's a skin right now that you can buy. It's a transposable skin, and it's a sword in Minecraft on the platform, and then on the other, in the other game, GTA 5, it becomes a skin on one of the cars, and that's known as a transposable NFT. And then having the interoperability, right? Like there's a number of ways that it's interoperable. It's interoperable across games. It's interoperable across chains, right? So I think that's something that then it's positive, because then if you're done with the skin and you're over it, and maybe even in the future you want to like maybe get a bit of a let's call it a rebate, right? That's probably the best way to explain it, or just a bit of money back on it, or even some profit on it. You're able to then go ahead and take that same skin that you bought, or that NFT, whatever it is that you want to call it, DGA. let's get rid of the buzzwords. But you can take that same DGA and you can go ahead and you can sell it on a marketplace, right, to someone else that wants to buy it. And as a result, then you get that money back, and that's where that ownership comes in, and that's decentralization, right? So Web2 is the centralization. Your money goes to the big company like that created the game. Decentralization means like you actually have the power to then have ownership over it and on sell it and make money out of it, or make money back on it.
And I think that's great. Thanks for explaining that, because I think I think it's probably obvious to a few of us that have been in this space for a while, but for those who haven't, why are we talking about Web3 when we've got Web2? What are the differences there? And I think we just touch on a point, and I'm just going to take a little moment to talk about maybe something we're doing at Layer 1X. So you mentioned that kind of selling of the gaming on an asset on a marketplace. So one thing that the interoperability of Layer 1X that allows for is the smart contract interaction cross-chain. So EVM, non-EVM, no matter what chain. As we connect more and more chains, we'll be able to do this. But one thing that we're bringing out in the next couple of months is a marketplace which will allow you to take that NFT, place it for sale in the L1X marketplace, but at the same time select other marketplaces that you wish to sell that NFT for at the same time. So you might go in there and place it in L1X, you might place it on OpenSea, you might place it on Magic Eden, you might place it on Blur.io, and now you have access to potential buyers across multiple different chains, and the access to liquidity is now exponential because of the interoperability. And the only reason I say that is just another use case that interoperability provides to the gaming experience, maybe near the end of the gaming experience where you're actually selling an asset. Anyone else that, and I know I'm conscious of, maybe we've got a little bit more shy speakers in the audience here. I know we've got Elderun, we've got Cyberlet, we've got Petaboats, we've got Hypermove. Any of you guys want to chime in on anything that we've been speaking about and maybe share some of your opinions as well? And we've also got Rashmi as well. So please chime in, whether it's a topic we just talked about or anything that we've covered already that maybe you haven't had a chance to speak.
Hey, this is Rashmi from Zeta. So I think
we all are always talking about when we come to Web3, the last question, which is say, what's the advantage of Web3 when it comes to games? We all talk about the ownership of it and people can make money, right? But I think we are selling Web3 short by saying only the uh, assets in general. That's one of the key factors. But I think there are a lot of things out there, which is something which Web3 can is bringing in, and we are not yet using it in the right way. Uh, so when I think of Web3 gaming, I think of Web3 gaming as 5 different aspects of it. Number one is player profile on chain. The player profile on chain essentially enables a player to go from game A to game B or game C and carrying their profile from game A to game B without any verification required, and that using that profile in the second game from there on. Uh, and this can be useful in so many different games that we cannot even think of, including hyper casual and casual games. So, and that depends on the game developers, obviously, to uh, integrate those kind of designs into the game. But it becomes a possibility right now with Web3, which was not possible earlier. So, let's say I am playing a hyper casual game. Let's say puzzle games, and I am on the higher level of puzzle solving. And for a certain fee or by importing my profile, I don't have to start a new puzzle game from level 1, which is like really easy and just drags my time. I can start probably from a level 100 or so. I'm giving some example on my in general. Sorry.
No. I think you raise an extremely important point, is because obviously you can capture this gaming profile. You can build out your gaming profile. You can have that as you experience different games, that especially with interoperability, because if you can take that gaming profile and it's compatible and that data is compatible cross-chain, then whether you're playing a game on Polygon or Solana or whatever the chain is, then your Web3 data or the data collected while you're playing these games in terms of maybe your skill level, your preferences, can be collected and then customized maybe with the next game you go to. So I really like that point, because then, as you say, if I've got an experience across 3 different first-person shooter games and I go into a new first-person shooter game, but the data collected through my activity shows that I'm an expert, then why start me at beginner? Because
Exactly.
Yes.
So, but like I said, there are like 5 different points. This is just part 1, right? Part 2 we already talked about, which is the game assets on chain, and we all talk about how the game assets on chain is unlocking us to value, maybe sell the assets, maybe own the assets, whatever, right? So I'll not touch much about that, the game assets on chain. I'll talk about the next factor when it comes to Web3 gaming. It is the game events on chain, or game transaction, or the what we call as the state on chain, right? Now this is a very few. This is not very much tapped into market yet, but I believe this will become very big. Uh, One of the biggest challenges of gaming is the use of bots and the cheats or frauds that are coming inside the game. So if you play a game in a competitive space, it's very difficult to find out who the bots are, who the if someone is using hacks. And I believe that once the game state or the game events on chain are coming, so that solves these problems to a large extent. Now, in Web 2, there was very few games which are having a monetary incentive out there. Hence, the target of bots were still there, but it was limited. But as the Web 3 is very, very tuned or coupled with monetary incentives. So by design, it would be getting more and more hit by bots and hackers and cheaters to essentially game the system and try to take an unfair advantage of the other players. Now, this essentially becomes very, very key and important to essentially analyze the game data and find out or weed out the bad actors from the system in a systematic way. And I believe there is with blockchain building or the data on chain building an immutable log of what's a player is building across different games, and at the same time using AI and advanced analytical tools, you can weed out these bad actors. I'm not talking about today, maybe 2 years, 3 years down the line, we would see these kind of systems coming up. And again, this becomes more and more possible with Web3 technologies, with blockchain. Without that, this would not be possible. And there are many use cases from here. I'm just keeping short of myself and okay, what are the other possibilities to do when these game event data come in? And this is actually our prime focus as well, Zeta, saying that how can this game events become a chain itself and kind of put it out to public. But this is also one of the key areas to look at. Then there are two other points, which are the game transactions. I think the transactions, again, we have seen some analytics tools using transactions and getting analytics on there, which are the so it essentially comes down to the factor that if a game is claiming I have got 1 million active users, you can see those million active users from the transactions and the game events and everything out there. So there is no ambiguity on the popularity or the data of the games. It's actually transparent and open for everyone to see that. And the fifth one, which is the most difficult part of Web3 gaming, is actually the game logic on chain. Now, I think Proof of Play is building the game where they're having the Pirate Nations and they're having game logic on chain. And even for a game like Proof of Nation, they have like 50 to 100 different contracts to write to essentially put that game logic on chain. It's not easy to build a game logic on chain per se, but I think it'll take us few years to get there. And definitely the game developers or designers who are yet to know what is blockchain to build 50 different or 100 different contracts to make a gameplay work is not going to be easy. But when that happens, it essentially opens up another area or another complete place where we would see mods coming out or extensions of game getting built by other developers, where it becomes just seamless of game development and platforms after platforms will be coming in there. But I think we are still 5 to 10 years away from that part, if I have to put it that way.
No, I appreciate all those points. I think you've raised some really, and I think it gives a great insight for everyone listening, actually, into the breadth of opportunities that Web3 can provide that to the gaming experience that currently isn't provided at a Web2 level. I think that's great. No, I appreciate those comments. I'm going to change it up a little bit here, just because this has been a hot topic across blockchain space. Is does a Bitcoin ETF approval impact Web3 gaming, and if so, how?
I'll be short here. My answer is doesn't.
Okay. Yep. Anyone else got any different thoughts? Does a Bitcoin ETF approval impact Web3 gaming, and if so, how?
Well, I can go on this briefly. Just as a way of introduction, I'm Matt. I run Call of the Void, 18 years in Web2 games, and now doing a Web3 game. And I do think that it actually has potentially a chilling effect if it doesn't get approved on people who are like doing the whole Kickstarter via Web3 that we've seen a lot of in the games industry, which is basically, it's like Star Citizen, but worse. It's essentially this whole thing of like, you put your token out there, it's like a flashy video, you don't make any gameplay, and then everything's based on the value. If the ETF does not get approved, then there's going to be a lot of sour thoughts towards gaming. There's going to be a lot of people who minted like terribly drawn PFPs that are going to suffer on this. And I do think that generally it's bad for the space if yet again the US government seems to attack the space in general, because a lot of people, like I heard some really good points from Rashmi there, like that people will bot games, for example, if there's money involved. No one in mobile has that problem with skill games because it's the audience. I mean, a lot of us in Web3, we go up against an educated audience. We go into RPG where everyone's a scammer, and then we have that trouble. So anything financial is going to affect us in general. And I do think that it won't affect us in that, yes, we can still build, yes, we can do that, but it might have a more chilling effect on the ecosystem. Will there be more investment? Will there be people opening their wallets to actually put things into gaming? Because I think games live or die on the strength of the game itself. I mean, that's why we released our game demo to the community before we even, we haven't even, taken any money from our community. And this, before the game. I think it needs to happen that a lot of these games do need to die, but I don't think an ETF or crushing down on crypto is the way to do it. Thanks.
No, I appreciate the insights as well. Anyone else want to share any of their thoughts? Does a Bitcoin ETF approval or disapproval, I suppose, have an impact on Web3 gaming, and if so, how? Okay, let me. Oh, so 3XP, are you wanting to?
Yeah, sure. If I
Yeah.
can. So, we generally at the 3XP, the entire team, we believe with the ETF approval, we see a lot of legitimacy to the space, and a lot of the game studios who are actually trying to bridge Web 2 and Web 3 would get a big boost, because you'd have a lot of, I would say, VCs trying to deploy around people who are actually trying to bridge. And even from a retail audience, right, we see gamers kind of starting to truly appreciate true financial freedom that they can achieve when, I would say, their gaming assets are publicly, I would say, publicly more accepted. And I personally see chains like Ronin, Avalanche, and a few others who have a lot of these shelf stable games with, I would say, a nice bridging narrative, actually getting more users and more validation from the market. So, and if the ETF doesn't get approved, you'd see a lot of these even small studios that are struggling to raise, right, get, I would say, void of some of the other opportunities. So we as a team collectively are hoping for this ETF to kind of bring this new form of regulations as well as opportunities for a lot of us who are building.
No, thank you, 3XP. I appreciate you sharing those thoughts on that. So let me bring it back to the topic, right? And I might ask for personal experiences or experiences close to you. Can the guest spellers share some, whether they positive personal experiences with interoperability or Web3 gaming and interoperability, or any negative experiences with Web3 gaming and interoperability, and potentially what they were, in terms of whether it's your personal experience or it's an experience that that someone's had. I'm interested to kind of bring it back to that topic, and what's some of the good stuff that's that's happened to you out there, or happened to people close to you? What's maybe some of the stuff that's not so great, where it hasn't worked well?
I would
Just
like to talk on a positive. 3XP, you go for it, brother. I'd love to hear what you have to
No
say.
worries, take it. Go for it.
All right. Just a positive, I would say, would be that interoperability. I love that NFTs can be transposable across games. I think that's really cool. I see that as a form of interoperability, and so to be able to Gaiman was, I think, the first company in the world to make NFTs interoperable across mainstream games like GTA 5 and Minecraft, which is pretty cool. And so to see people actually using them, I think is it's amazing. To see that adoption actually take place, and watch people oh shit, it's a sword here and it's a skin there. I talked on what was before, just the DGA that you can buy. But yeah, I think that's exciting. I like seeing it all come to fruition. And I think it's, again, one of those things yeah, we've talked about it for so long, and then once you start to see it happen, it's actually really exciting. I'm a gamer at heart. A bit of an old school gamer, like RuneScape, Call of Duty, Age of Empires. If you're in the audience, you know who you are. We're the OGs. But that for me is exciting when I see it kind of come into other games, and I start to see it come to life. That for me is my positive. 3XP, go for it.
Just trying to even gauge this from the other panel, right? I personally haven't been that fond of interoperability that is available yet, because I would say Blizzard spoiled me big time with the amount of Web2 interoperability they have across their assets. So any of you who feel left out because of it as well?
Maybe talk a little
Yeah.
bit about that. Talk a little bit about that at 3XP. What do you mean? What? How were you spoiled? What was the great thing about that interoperability? That's
Like me spending my money at one title across a launcher allowed me to enjoy the same perk across a various, I would say, other titles. So if I was buying a character pack, maybe I was getting a gun tag or a gun buddy in some other game. If I was buying maybe a music pack, it was accessible to me across the titles. If I was buying a mount or if I was farming a mount, I could use a skin that was tied to that mount in some other game. So a lot of my actions were positively incentivized across the entire ecosystem without even me getting to know it. And getting little surprises every once in a while was actually a very fruitful experience.
Yeah, no. Thank you for expanding on that. Anyone else want to share any experiences, whether they be positive or negative, around that they've had with interoperability in Web3 gaming?
I'm happy to go if you're happy to listen. But yeah, I do think that interoperability in Web3 gaming is one of the few things that gets us talking to other studios. 3XP is definitely right that it's very easy to imagine that within your own ecosystem. I mean, it's something that it's almost on by default for every game that you produce in this industry with Web3, that you can be interoperable across your own ecosystem. But I do think it's really exciting when you get those conversations with, hey, how about let's put PFPs in our game, or things like Nifty Island that got a lot of play on Twitter, with basically taking PFP projects that are making either terrible games or not making games, and then actually giving a use to those goddamn expensive JPEGs. So I think there is some real pluses to interoperability, and I think one of the major pluses I've seen is it literally allows you to have conversations with other studios that you would never, ever even think to. Even people who are kind of close competitors, or in the space that in Web 2, you would just be like, nope, I am not even talking to these fellas. It's the kind of thing that I think going forward, it allows us in the smaller game dev community to essentially band together and create interoperability across our products and across our games that will actually stand up and say, hey, there's this ecosystem that we can use all of this stuff. I think the one negative experience I've had is with chains. Chains can give you money, like, say, Polygon or IMX. And Polygon, they can be very capricious. Like, they're all pro gaming one year, and then everything dries up the next, and then suddenly they get Jonah Blake, and they're going to do a whole thing with NFTs and gaming. And meanwhile, IMX is giving out grants like crazy. So I think the difference is the chains need to be more friendly, because it's really fucking difficult to implement a new passporting system or a wallet system if you're a small dev, and especially if you have to actually rely on sort of Web3 devs, undoxed devs. They're expensive, not necessarily always trustworthy, and I think that's the bad experience I've had with interoperability. Cross-chain is just a nightmare, but I think we'll get there in the future. And I think there are so many things that are interesting about this. Will these chains actually be able to handle proper volume? I'm talking like Candy Crush volume. When I was working there at King, we had 232 million active users a month. Do we have any conceivable chain in blockchain at the moment that could do that, let alone for an on-chain game? I'm just talking even the most basic services.
Yeah, I think you bring up quite a few good points there, and thank you for sharing your own personal experience as well. I think one of the points that resonated with me at the beginning was the collaboration. Right, there's these interoperable relationships where it's creating an environment where you can work together with other studios, and I think that's, if I can speak to Layer 1X, that's the core of what we believe as well. We're not here to, as a Layer 1 chain, we're not here to compete. We're here to unite with technology that can potentially unite not only chains, but unite projects to collaborate in that manner. And I think ultimately that really is how we're going to grow, how we're going to grow the space. Well, one of the most important ways we can grow the space is through that collaboration, without kind of this double spend on resources. and not actually working together. So and there's a few other really good points you brought up there. So look, I'm conscious of time, and I'm conscious of the speaker's time as well. So maybe two questions, two kind of general questions that I'll get anyone to speak to. The first one is, what advice would you give?
Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me. I just got rugged by Elon. I'm just going to drop the listener.
Sure, no problem. Two final questions. The first one is, what advice would you give to Web3 gamers starting out now? You know, those guys that they've got an idea or they've already got, you know, an MVP, and they're starting out in the space, and you know, from your own experience, what's some of the, if some of the guests can share, what's some of the advice that you would share with those people?
Did you say Web3 game developers or gamers?
Web3 game developers, please.
Okay, yeah. Okay, hey, this is James Stolte from Cyberleet. I think finding, you know, if you're developing a game, of course, finding the game that's going to have the least gas fees, basically, you know, finding the right tech stack for you. Like Jeff mentioned earlier, Constellation Networks is a really great one because they use Java, they use JVM, and pretty much anyone can use JVM. So just the details like that, look into each chain and see their benefits and such. I think the next thing I would say, if you're coming in new to the Web3 development space, just build. Don't get involved in the shenanigans that are going on in Web3. Just build your vision, build it out the way you want it, and talk about it. That's what you got to do.
So let me ask you this, because let's say I'm a brand new Web3 developer, and you just mentioned don't get involved in the shenanigans. Give me an example of a shenanigan I shouldn't be getting involved in.
I wouldn't. So if Pepe the token comes to you and wants to partner, I wouldn't get involved with that. I think that's a really bad thing, is to get involved with some of these meme tokens. We've been approached by popular meme tokens and basically influencers, and there'll be a lot of tempting things that get thrown your way, but you really got to watch out for the end goal vision of how you want to be represented in the space. And once you're in the space long enough, you see a lot of the meme things kind of go south, or these influencer tokens go south. So just be really careful on what you get involved in.
I think that's really good advice. I think have a clear vision, have a plan on what you want to do. You're going to be tempted along the way with, you know, these conversations that you'll have from other partners, but obviously double fact check whatever, or double check that whatever the offer is, it still fits the vision and the plan that you have in terms of what you want to build. Anyone else want to share advice? You know, if to the new Web3 gaming developers out there, any kind of, from your own experience, what advice would you give to them?
Oh yeah, I've got like tons of advice, because we tried to do a Web3 marketing push. It was extremely expensive, and it got us basically nothing apart from burning runway. The problem with Web3 is the space is incredibly capricious. Like one day it's Sol, the next day it's Polygon. That might only last for a couple of seconds. Then it's AVAX, then it's something else. Then it's this influence, and it's that one. And sometimes people will try to partner with you. They'll ask you a lot of questions, then they'll disappear without trace, like in a couple of minutes. So I think the thing is like, it's definitely just build what you want, do that. And I would say try to own your own community from the start. Like try to build your own community from the start, because building in public is a massive benefit. Like we used our community to beta test the game and to do bug hunts, and we reward them for that and all of that kind of good stuff. And we take suggestions and all of that kind of stuff. It's really difficult if you get started and you're not a known name. There are too many flashy things on offer, and the timing, you can basically be like trying for one chain for a year, then you get dumped, and then you go onto another chain. and then suddenly the chain you left is like crazy. You don't want to be a Frank Geek Gods in this space. Just stick at what you're doing. Look at the things on the chains that support your project. The functionality is more important. You can always do marketing Web 2 way.
Yeah,
I don't,
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know if I share the same sentiment, Matt.
Yep.
I just like play the 12th man there. I think so. When I was obviously everyone's been a Web 2 person and then figured out Web 3, and now we're apparently all Web 3 people. I've been doing marketing like 10 years now, and digital marketing. I specialized in e-commerce, and then I moved into consulting with Web 3, and was fortunate enough to have the skill set to be able to be able to produce good results in Web 3. And I think I see it from the other lens, which is like the optimistic view of like you said that it was like a thing where the attention is like always shifting and always moving. I think if you know what you're doing in the space, that doesn't matter. Because if you're good at grabbing attention, you can always be front of mind no matter what chain you're on. It doesn't actually matter. Like the use of the example of like Frank the Gods. I've spoken to Frank a couple of times. He's a very smart guy. Like he's like not on the same caliber or level, but he's like an Elon Musk of the space, in that he's always got something that's newsworthy, right? And that's what allows him to stay at the top of mind. And because he doesn't have a project that has any utility, it's just a PFP project. That's why he does those moves, and that's why he does those things. So my advice is like, if like Web3 is actually the best place to build community. I've been doing this a long time. I've like for the context in terms of like the gravity of where this comes from. Like I've helped companies generate like over $90 million in e-commerce, and I say that super humbly. And so what I'm trying to say is that like I've never come across a better mechanism that builds community than an NFT collection, because of that evangelism that comes with it. So if you like, my advice would be is that you find those people in the space that have an idea of like what they're talking about. You see their track record, and you always look at case studies, and you have a look at those case studies, and you see the performance that they got. And if it all like lines up and it makes sense, and you saw that they actually had a great result in terms of marketing, and that's what you're after, then that's the people that you partner with. So I think my advice is just do your homework on people, do your background on people, make sure that you have genuine conversations, and more times than not in this space, your gut instinct is the right one. Try not jump into FOMO, and try not be sold on like all the big buzzwords that some of these marketers try to throw at you. Just like do your homework, figure it out, speak to the people that they're providing case studies on, and more times than not, like if you actually find the right people, you'll like the benefits far outweigh the cons. So yeah, that's
And would you say that helps? Because obviously with more and more Web3 games getting launched and more Web3 gaming developers coming into the space, there's more and more noise, right? And so are those tips that you would take, is that how you get above the noise as well? Because everyone's shouting about their project.
Yeah, like
You know?
it is because there's strategies that, so it's like this is the thing, and this is my like genuine advice is that it's just knowing the formula, right? And the formula changes only by about 20% every 3 months. It doesn't actually change as much as what you think. More times than not, the same things actually tend to work time and time again. It's just that every time, like, well, actually, yeah. So from a new project's perspective, you might not understand that, because you just see all these projects popping off. You're like, why the hell did that project pop off? They had no utility. They had nothing. The founder didn't know what he was talking about, and yet they did so. Like, why is that the case? More times than not, it's just because they're using these specific strategies that just tend to work well in Web3. Like, you got to think of it like this: like we're in a very okay. The world today, we're like, it's like the goldfish age, right? Like attention on social media is, I think, 3 seconds. That's the golden rule, right? When it comes to creating content, capture people's attention in the first 3 seconds or in the first line. Even with email marketing, like the subject is like 80% of the whole email itself. Like you got to get people to open. Or with the video, first 3 seconds, like that's in normal, like the normal world, IRL, Web 2. In Web 3, it's shorter than that again. Like It's ridiculous, right? So it's just understanding that we live in a short attention economy in Web3, and it's even shorter again. And there are strategies that work best with those types of people. Like hype, unfortunately, is the best way to push a project. Like there are plenty of projects that sit in the top 50 on coin market cap that are just vaporware, that like absolutely do nothing. Yet they're a top 50 coin, and they've garnered enough attention to pull enough liquidity into their project. That means that all of a sudden they're like one of the best projects, right? And that's purely just because they like more times than not great at marketing, as well as other fundamentals that they have with like different institutionals, whales, market makers, all the other things that come outside of that as well. But I'm talking from the marketing point of view here, so please don't think I'm being tunnel vision on this. But just from that marketing point of view, like hype is really what it is. And yes, those strategies just tend to work. So it's not as difficult as what you think. If you guys do need recommendations, I have plenty of people that I could put towards you, and like these are all good people, like people that I like my homies, my mates, and I know what they can do. They're very talented.
I think that's generous. And if anyone wants to reach out and take that advice, I think that's great. And I think so. It's either know the formula or know someone who knows the formula, right? And then you can.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
I mean, exactly that point. I wish I'd have had you gaming because it was really tough for us. So I would absolutely love to connect, and thank you again for inviting us up into the space.
I love the collaboration happening on the space as well. So look, final question for everybody, and please jump in if you want to share your thoughts on this. For Web3 gamers, the actual gamers, what does 2024 hold? What's some of the cool stuff that you think is going to be happening this year for Web3 gaming that you're either speculating on or who would like to kind of share some of the things that you think that Web3 gamers can look forward to in 2024?
Jumping in here, so I believe Web3 gaming is going to go through its first wave of standardization in 2024, wherein you would have a lot of, I would say, mature audiences coming. A lot of games, I would say, work towards interoperability and real world value, because I believe a lot of new games, like even Gaiman right now, with the ethos that has set in the market, it's more about value distribution than value concentration. So I believe a lot of real world utility is up for grabs in 2024, at least for these games.
I think you're 100% right. And I'm just about to pick up my daughter from preschool, so I'm going to love you and leave you. But I do think that there is some really big things happening in this space. I am absolutely amazed that Pocket Gamer, big fest like games thing in London, mobile, there's only like 50 Web3 mobile games out at the moment, only 50 out of 700,000 on the App Store. But it actually has Web3 and Metaverse in the title, and it has a track for that. So I think the thing is that people are waking up, industry is waking up, they are slower. And I do think that slowly we're going to see high quality products which won't rug people, slowly starting to gain traction. Maybe outside of the echo chamber, maybe we won't know about them until people start bringing them into our echo chamber. But I think there's a lot of good moving, and Asia especially, it's going to be huge this year for gaming.
Yep, definitely. Like we personally see at least like next three biggest game easily setting up their audiences in Asia Pacific and Latin America, to be very honest.
And don't fade Africa and Southeast Asia as well. Like if you look at the fastest, just to use a finance term, CAC and the growth regions, like they call them tier 3 countries in Web2 mobile marketing, which is really fucking horrible. But these places are the places that are growing, and they are also pro crypto. So I think a lot of people are wasting a lot of time and energy trying to convert hardcore gamers. And hardcore gamers, when you throw in the word NFT to them, they turn into Greta Thunberg and say, you're destroying the environment, it's all a scam, it's blah, blah, blah. I think if you try for people who actually see the promises, like your Discord mods who are probably from Nigeria or all of those kind of people who actually use this on a day-to-day basis and they're cool with it. Like, these are the people that are growing, and their regions with more middle class, it's coming up. Everywhere is big. So I think, yeah, the future is now, really.
Excellent. Anyone else want to share their thoughts for 2024 in terms of Web3 gaming?
I think it's just going to get better. Everything's going to get better. Models are going to be improved. Tokenomics should hopefully get better. I think you'll see more entertainment value coming out of games as opposed to just like those Web3 standard games we saw like 2 years ago. You know, they're going to be more than just a still picture on a screen. Axie Infinity. Excuse me, I keep sneezing today. Like, there's just, yeah, better entertainment, I think, is what we're going to see, and that's what we want, right? We're in games. People are there to enjoy themselves, so looking forward to that.
Excellent. And if I could chuck in maybe 2 cents from the Layer 1X perspective. So in terms of what we're trying to do and impacting, you know, the gaming space with the interoperability, this year we'll have the ability for projects to be able to consolidate liquidity onto Layer 1X and have that liquidity serve any chain we're connected to. So fragmentation of liquidity across multiple chains won't need to happen. You can pull your liquidity onto Layer 1X and be connected to Ethereum, Polygon, AVAX, Binance, Solana, and every other chain that we continue to connect, Arbitrum, Optimism, and the more and more chains we will connect during 2024, EVM, non-EVM. The interoperability will allow for cross-chain verification of NFT ownership. So you can start to mint, you know, NFTs on an EVM or a non-EVM chain, but still verify the ownership of that on any other chain for use, whether it's transposability of NFTs or just, you know, interoperability of the same NFT on multiple different platforms. We're also looking at the building out the gamer profile. So a profile that is compatible across multiple chains, EVM, non-EVM, where you can encrypt and own that gamer profile data, where you can, you know, start to customize those experiences and interact with projects that may want to allow you a customized experience where you can start at a higher level if you're a professional. But also the monetization of that, where you can start to, because you own that data and people want to reach out to you and advertise to you, you can monetize that data as well. And last but not least, the ability for gaming tokens to be purchased across multiple different chains. So we're looking at connecting our interoperability with DEX aggregation on multiple chains. So whether you're a small game or a large game, if you're part of a DEX, that DEX aggregator will pick up that liquidity, connect it to our cross chain, and so now your gaming token can be purchased across multiple different chains, all through our bridges interoperability. And these are just a few of some of the things that we're bringing to the space, and that we feel that can have a positive impact on Web3 gaming. Look, guys, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I think we've had a vast array of quality speakers. I loved your insights. I loved your experience. I'm sure it's been loved by the audience that have joined us here today. Many thanks to you all. You know, to everyone listening, we'll be running these XTalks regularly, weekly, whether they're DeFi, whether they're gaming, whether they're meme, whether they're NFTs, whether they're digital identity. But I think today's been a great space, and a huge thank you to all the speakers. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. It was awesome. Thank you. Ciao, ciao. Bye.
Thanks, guys. It was fun being here.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Ciao.